welcome to the third and final recording on the geoarchaeology of the Central Winchester regeneration. In previous recordings I've talked to you about the fieldwork that we carried out in September 2020, how we obtained cores from 13 boreholes and then how we described those cores. And then in the subsequent video we looked at the analysis we carried out of those cores and what that told us about the buried deposits. In this video I aim to sum up and just provide some general messages on our findings, and I'm making this video 3 months after the end of the project and after having submitted the final report to Winchester City Council in March 2022. That final report included an element I haven't spoken about before, namely the hydrogeological study. That hydrogeological study comprised collection of groundwater level data over a 12-month period between September 2020 and September 2021, and that study demonstrated that the groundwater within the Central Winchester regeneration varies between about 80 centimetres below ground surface and 2 metres. So despite the variations in rainfall over that period, there's only a variation of about a metre all told, and that variation of water table occurs within the archaeological stratigraphy. If you remember back to the first video, we saw that the stratigraphy of Central Winchester comprises the chalk basement dating to the Cretaceous, 90 million years ago rather, overlain by river gravels relating to an earlier course of the River Itchen dating to perhaps 20 to 70,000 years ago, then further river deposits dating to the early part of the Holocene period, perhaps 11 to 5,000 years ago, and then archaeological deposits above that. Those archaeological deposits vary in thickness between 1 metre and about 4.5 metres, with a tendency for that increase to be towards the east, in other words towards the present River Itchen. So the water table varies within that, and that's quite important because the water table determines what sort of remains will survive within the archaeological layers. We've previously demonstrated that organic remains survive relatively well throughout the archaeological deposits, and that is partly explained by the high water table. Now, looking at the nature of proposed construction on the site, it's very unlikely that that construction is going to significantly affect the water table, certainly not lower it, unless there is some form of compartmentalization where the water table is sort of internally split, if you like. Otherwise it's unlikely to have any great effect on the water table and therefore the preservation of archaeological remains. So the project as a whole has demonstrated the thickness of the archaeological stratigraphy, its depth, the nature of preservation, the water table, and the likely impact of the development on the water table. This marks the end of the project. It's probably not the last archaeological stage of the project, but certainly the last part of this stage. So thank you for listening to these videos.